Hi, this is Sue Jackson of the Book by Book blog, and I'm here today with my October reading wrap-up. October was a fabulous reading month for me. I was participating in the R.I.P challenge like I do every fall. That's Readers Imbibing Peril, a long time challenge from the book blogging community. Now I think it resides mostly on Instagram. I'm not actually on Instagram yet, but I still like to participate in it because I love ushering in fall with darker reads, and that's what this is all about. And it's very loose. Anything that's darker for you. So it doesn't mean you have to read horror. It means suspense, mystery, even cozy mysteries count. Dystopian, anything that's a little on the dark side. So I love this challenge. Our house is filled with mysteries, suspense novels, thrillers, science fiction, dystopian, because my husband reads a lot of that. And very often he finishes a book and says, "Oh, you have to read this." And they pile up on my side of the bookcase. So I love this time of year to catch up. My reading journal, I actually read a total of 9 books in October, which is a lot for me. Some of those were audio. Okay, first up, I kicked the month off wonderfully with Upgrade by Blake Crouch. This is one of his science fiction thrillers, and they are spectacular. Dark Matter is one of my favorite books, and that's one of Blake Crouch's recent sci-fi thrillers. And he wrote Recursion, which was also very good. Upgrade was excellent. I'd have to reread Dark Matter to see if it surpassed Dark Matter. I don't think so, but it's close. It was really, really good. So this is set in the near future. There's been a disaster from genetic manipulation that caused a worldwide famine. Scientists were trying to engineer certain insects that would, instead of destroying crops, that would help the crops to thrive, and it went wrong. A horrible worldwide famine ensued, which the world is still trying to recover from. So this is set in the US. It features a man named Logan, who used to be a genetic scientist until he, along with many of his colleagues, got arrested for their work because it is now illegal to do any kind of genetic work. The US government has a new agency, the Genetic Protection Agency, and when Logan was arrested, they made a deal with him. If he'd come to work for the GPA, he could get out of prison. So that's what he's doing when this begins. At the very beginning, it kicks off right from the start with action. He and his partner are going on a raid of a suspected genetic lab. Logan is the first one through the doors, and when he goes in, something happens. He's exposed, despite his protective gear, he's exposed to something. And he doesn't know quite what. The doctors don't know quite what at first. He's very sick and hospitalized, but soon, after he's released from the hospital, he not only starts feeling better, but feeling better than he ever has in his life. His mind is sharper. He is faster. He is stronger. His memory is insane. He can remember everything he has ever read in his life. He can access all of his memories. And as you can tell by the title, the basic idea is that Logan has been upgraded. And that's all I'm going to say. All of that happens in the very, very beginning. It's a twisty, suspenseful, thrilling ride. Lots of action, lots of surprises, and a very, as always, a very thought-provoking premise. So that's Upgrade by Blake Crouch. Highly recommend this one. Next up, I read Butterfly Girl by Rene Denfeld. This is a follow-up to her earlier novel, The Child Finder. It features the same woman, Naomi, who is an expert at finding children and who was herself a kidnapped and missing child. So this is personal for her. And in this second book, it is very personal. She has pledged not to take on another case until she finds her own sister. She and her sister were kidnapped at the same time as children, a fact that she's only recently remembered. She had pushed a lot of that down once she escaped from their captor. So she's only recently remembered that she has a sister. She is appalled that her sister was never found, and that's her mission in this book. Along the way, she is searching. She's in Portland, Oregon. She's searching in the areas where a lot of homeless children hang out, live on the streets, on Portland's Skid Row. And there's a girl there who is living on the streets who really gets under Naomi's skin. So her primary purpose is looking for her sister, who's in her 20s by now, but at the same time, she is intrigued by and wants to help this young girl that she meets. It was excellent, just as good as the first book. Definitely recommend The Butterfly Girl by Rene Denfeld. My first audiobook of October was When Ghosts Come Home by Wiley Cash. I had heard a lot about Wiley Cash over the years. I actually had no idea what kind of novels he wrote, but I had heard he was a good writer. And I was glad to finally have the opportunity to find out for myself. So this is a mystery set in a small town in North Carolina on the Outer Banks, actually on an island. It's a mystery, but it's got in-depth characters. It really delves into the characters' lives. It's got plenty of emotional depth. And in that way, it reminded me a bit of William Kent Kruger. I would say Kruger is still my favorite, but Wiley Cash is an excellent writer. This small town mystery with so much focus on the characters. It was historic. I hate to think that the 80s is historic, but they tell me it is. So it's set in the 80s. And so it's about this murder in this small town, but at the same time, it's about the characters. The sheriff who's investigating, the man who was murdered, and their families and friends. I enjoyed it very much. Next up, I read Dangerous Lies by Becca Fitzpatrick. This YA novel has been on my shelves since 2015. I used to review a lot of young adult middle grade novels. I wrote for Family Fun magazine, and that was part of what I did. And I still have a backlog of review books that were sent to me that I never got a chance to get to. I hung on to this one all these years because I thought that it would be right up my alley, and it was. This is about a young woman, a teenage girl, who is put into witness protection. She's from Philadelphia. Her mother was a drug addict. Her parents were split up, and her mother was a drug addict. So she has been used to being in charge for a long time. She's basically been parenting her mother. So when she witnesses a murder in her own home involving her mother's drug dealer, she and her mother are both put into witness protection. But her mother is sent directly to rehab. So Estella from Philadelphia is moved to a small town in Nebraska and becomes Stella Gordon. Now, small town Nebraska is very different from her life in Philadelphia, and this takes a lot of getting used to. And at first, she's got a chip on her shoulder. She doesn't want to get used to it. But small town life starts to grow on her. In addition, of course, she's in witness protection because her life is in danger. She witnessed this murder. The guy who did it is part of a huge drug cartel. They are after her and her mother. She has agreed to testify, and so she has a target on her back. So she knows these horrible people are trying to find her. She's trying to stay safe, but also thinking about what's life going to be like for her from now on. So I am fascinated by witness protection, RIPxix, as those of us in the know call it. I don't know, the whole concept fascinates me, and this book was excellent. I think I chose it originally because I had read Hush Hush by the author and enjoyed that. This was really well written, completely engrossing, a very gripping story. It is both kind of classic YA, as Stella tries to learn to fit in this new place and create a new life for herself. It is also very suspenseful, and the last part especially is action-packed thriller type action. So that's Dangerous Lies by Becca Fitzpatrick. Excellent YA novel. Next on audio, I listened to Coraline by Neil Gaiman. I don't know how I had missed this modern classic for so long. I've heard about it, of course. I know there's a movie based on it. I had never read it or seen the movie. I had no idea what it was about. But I had read a couple of other Neil Gaiman books that I really enjoyed. The Ocean at the End of the Lane and The Graveyard Book, both excellent. So I dove into this audio and loved it. And talk about perfect for this season. Wow. Coraline was the perfect spooky listen. It is about a young girl in the UK. She and her parents live in a house that's been divided into apartments. And she's really bored. Her parents pretty much ignore her all the time. I think they're new to the house and the neighborhood. She doesn't really know anyone. So just to cure her boredom, she does a lot of exploring. And one day, she goes through this mysterious door in their house and finds herself in an alternate universe. It looks just like their apartment. There are parents there that look just like her parents, only they're very attentive, which she's not used to and really likes. But the parents have button eyes. And that's where the creepiness starts to come in. This alternate world is very enticing to Coraline at first, but she soon realizes that she and perhaps some others need to escape it. Excellent book. Everyone else has probably already read it or seen the movie, but if you haven't, I highly recommend it. Definitely good for spooky season. Coraline by Neil Gaiman. And during that vacation we took at the end of the month, my husband and I also listened to an audiobook while we were driving. That's one of the many things we love about road trips, listening to an audiobook while we travel. The one we chose this time, we usually listen to thrillers or suspense because that's my husband's favorite genre, and it makes for good listening in the car. So we chose 9 Lives by Peter Swanson. We had previously listened to, last year, 8 Perfect Murders by Swanson. So we knew what we were getting into. He writes some good suspense novels. This one had an intriguing premise. At the beginning, 9 different people spread out across the U.S. with no connection to one another, each receive a piece of paper in the mail with a list of 9 names typed, including their own. Soon the FBI is investigating this. People on the list start dying suspicious deaths. I mean, that's the premise of the whole book. It was a little confusing at first because you're trying to keep track of 9 different characters, plus the FBI investigation. although one of the names on the list is an FBI agent, which is how they get involved so quickly. But we really got into it. It's a very twisty novel. Unfortunately, you get to like a character and then they get killed off. That was the downside, but it's very suspenseful. Lots of surprises. We did not figure out the ending. It was a complete surprise to us, and really made the miles fly by. 9 Lives by Peter Swanson. Our vacation was a camping vacation, which I love because that means a lot of extra reading time. Plus, I love being outdoors all the time. You can check out my vacation vlog, which I posted this week. I'll include the link down below. So this was the first book I read while we were away, When She Woke by Hilary Jordan. Hilary Jordan is the award-winning author of a historical novel named Mudbound. If you haven't read that yet, I highly recommend it. If you like historical fiction, outstanding novel. It won the Bellwether Prize and I think another award as well. So Mudbound was excellent and I loved it. I've actually read it twice because I read it on my own and then a book group chose it years later. So this was her second novel. This is another one that has been sitting on my shelf. This one's really bad, for 12 years. It was published in 2011. I know I got the paperback as soon as it was issued because I loved Mudbound so much. This is a complete departure from that. When She Woke is a dystopian novel set in a near-future U.S., initially set in Texas. The main character is a young woman named Hannah, and the novel starts with the fabulous line. This novel has great beginning line and ending line. It begins with, when she woke, she was red. So right away, you know where the title came from. So in this near future world, in order to relieve prison crowding, they have decided that only the most dangerous criminals will be locked up, and all other criminals will get their skin dyed a color to match their crime, spend a month imprisoned, and then be released out into public to serve their sentence with their skin dyed that color. So Hannah wakes up red. She is a red, which means she has committed murder. Murder in this world includes abortion, which is what Hannah is guilty of. And so she spends that first month in the cell, which has 24/7 video, live feed video. It's, you know, reality television taken to a crazy degree. And then she's let out. And her life takes so many twists and turns from there. Hannah was brought up in a very sheltered environment. Her family and her community were extremely religious. She was brought up in this very limited, protected way. She was only allowed to read certain books. She had to dress with herself fully covered, all kinds of things. So there's a lot here going on. Hannah living as a criminal now with her skin dyed red. We've got her past and how she grapples with that. And the title has a double meaning because she is also awakening for the first time to who she might be on her own, because her family and friends have abandoned her. You know, this is how criminals are treated in this world. Anyway, excellent book, fabulous dystopian novel. The author says it's a riff on A Scarlet Letter, and I was smiling at the beginning as I could see those little threads that kind of tie back to A Scarlet Letter, but in a modern world. At the same time, you can see hints of The Handmaid's Tale here. very thought-provoking, but also suspenseful. A lot of thriller action, especially in the second half. Very much enjoyed When She Woke by Hilary Jordan. I couldn't put it down. My last audiobook of the month, I squeezed in one more middle grade audio, The Stars Did Wander Darkling by Colin Meloy. This was also perfect for the season. It is set in a small seaside town in Oregon in the 80s and follows a group of 4 friends, 3 boys and a girl. So right off the bat, it had a very Goonies vibe to me, if you remember the movie Goonies. But also, as things start to happen in their small town, I realized it's also got some Stranger Things vibes as well. So this was excellent. Strange things start happening in their town. The kids are the only ones who notice it first and are trying to save the town and stay safe themselves. They're riding their bikes all over. They're friends with the guy that runs the video store. They're trying to figure out what is going on in this town. And basically, again, very Stranger Things, like an ancient evil has been unleashed. But it's not Stranger Things in like big monsters. This is more, well, let's just say there are also elements of Invasion of the Body Snatchers. So this was excellent. Really enjoyed it. Gripping story. I had no trouble finishing it in a short time. Really enjoyed The Stars Did Wander Darkling by Colin Meloy. And finally, I finished up the month of October with Down the River Unto the Sea by Walter Mosley. Another book I've been meaning to read for a while. My husband read this one we just looked it up last night on my blog, I think in 2017. I've been meaning to read it ever since. As you can see, the R.I.P challenge gives me a chance to clear some of those older books from my shelf. In fact, I think I gave this to my husband as a gift. We both love Walter Mosley. He writes a wide variety of books, science fiction, mysteries, detective stories, suspense thrillers, YA. He writes a lot of different kinds of books. His list of books that he's written in the front covers 2 whole pages. He's an amazing writer. We both read and really enjoyed Devil in a Blue Dress by Walter Mosley. This is the first book in his Easy Rawlins series, a detective series. It's got like a dozen or so books in it by now. Excellent. And the movie adaptation was excellent as well. And we both read and absolutely loved The Last Days of Ptolemy Gray by Walter Mosley. This was actually chosen by our county library system as the all-county reads book like a decade ago. And so I not only read it with my book group, but I got to go and listen to Walter Mosley talk, which was excellent. This is science fiction, but it is mostly a story about family and memory. Excellent, highly recommended. It's about an elderly man who's losing his memory and is given a chance to try like a miracle drug that will give him his memory back, but only for a short time. Really, really good. So anyway, Down the River Unto the Sea is a mystery. This one features an ex-NYPD cop named Joe King Oliver. That's his given name. He was removed from the force when he was accused of sexual assault. He was falsely accused. He was thrown in prison. The 90 days he spent in solitary confinement at Rikers ruined him, changed him. this takes place 10 years later. He still has nightmares about what he went through. He knows somebody set him up, but he doesn't know who or why. And so as this book starts, he's got a private detective agency. His teenage daughter helps him out, and she is like the one reason he is healing. And then somebody comes in with a case that seems to also have threads of police corruption. And at the same time, that same day actually, he receives a letter from the woman who he was accused of assaulting 10 years ago, telling him what happened, why she did it, and who set him up. So he begins investigating these dual cases, both involving police corruption. And it's very personal for him because that setup ruined his life. It is gritty. You see the dark criminal underbelly of New York City. There are a lot of characters here to keep track of. I had a little trouble with that. I was glad I was reading it in print and not listening on audio. But it's very well written. It's got a lot of twists and turns, a lot of unexpected things happen. And you really feel for the main character. You want him to be able to clear his name. So that's Down the River Unto the Sea by Walter Mosley. That was my October reading. I would love to hear what you read in October. Did you do any spooky reading for the season? Let me know in the comments down below.